Hello, I'm the Angry Spork, taking issue with the Blink miniseries. Young Clarice Ferguson done got herself stuck in the negative zone with a mysterious case of amnesia. After fighting and then allying with a drifter called Ahmyor, she helps defend some desert dwellers from the forces of Blastaar, who seeks to raise an army against Apocalypse's Earth. She could have spent her spring break in Miami, but no!
Same style background as the previous covers, though now the previous slot used by Rogue and Blastaar is filled by Ahmyor. But that isn't the most interesting element at work. It seems Blink is making out with Annihilus while they each hold a very pointy object behind the other.
I gotta tell you, these dating apps are getting out of control.
We open to a splash page of Blink, dressed for arid climates as narration reminds us of her memory loss, but getting brief flashes of her life in conflict on Earth as part of the X-Men. Though at the moment she's part of the pro-Annihilus rebellion against Blastaar, and if it looks like she's being shot at, like through her hood in what looks like would have been a fatal wound at that angle, that's because she is, specifically by some wicked demon-looking brutes. At the moment, she has found herself pursued.
Thanks, narration. I never would have guessed that, what with her riding away from a bunch of guys firing weapons at her. I figured they were just air raiding the desert and she just bumbled in their way.
According to her pursuer's dialogue, Clarice apparently attacked Blastaar's garrison alone, and is encouraging her ferrocat, Tavella, to keep going a little longer. I'm sure that means a lot to the creature, with most of the bullets hitting their helmet, and considering they're blind and rely heavily on scent and sound, I'm sure the flying camel thing's ears are just fine. But hey, at least her rider is whispering. Their target is headed for a ravine, so the flyers think they've got her, only to find on a 2-page spread that they've been led into an ambush led by Ahmyor, of about 1,000 or so willing fighters. The captain makes subconscious note of this, just before he loses control of his bladder.
But only because he's been holding in the entire chase, since no one wanted to use the restroom at the McDonald's they passed a few blocks back.
Also, this is either a minor coloring error or someone made their rebellion flag out of cellophane. The creatures try to retreat but are killed by so many arrows. Ahmyor congratulates Blink on helping kill off some of the forward guard, but she seems a little out of sorts. Perfect time for the two to make out, so we see how their relationship has developed in between issues.
We interrupt our program to bring you this important message. I love you. Now back to our show.
Seemingly unconvinced of her great accomplishments, Clarice heads off to take out the posts at the watchtower so they can storm the castle. Where we go, seeing some other guards waiting on the infantry soldiers that chased after Blink. One suggests they decide not to kill her right away. Vague but suggestive enough, especially since he says that the infantry unit is just in general loathsome.
Granted, nothing is specifically stated, so the reader is expected to use their imagination. But the argument could be made that the writer wants to steer that imagination a certain way without getting into specifics as to what they mean. Don't feel too bad about them being slaughtered in any event, I suppose.
The one with the binoculars spots Blink, and on the next splash page she takes them out, adding literal insults to injury. She transports an honor guard's sword to the rebels, their signal to begin advancing, and soon enough, they're at the gates. Some soldiers, preoccupied by a game of cards, are taken by surprise by the rebels, and then taken out by Clarice, who mentions having had a harder time stealing food when she was a kid. Not that she remembers a lot, but I guess the physical memory is evident enough for her. And here she is, one master key.
Gotta say, that Skyrim VR is looking pretty good. Just hope she leveled up her stamina to carry all the loot she's gonna get out of that room.
Her allies bust in with a battering ram. She descends a staircase to a darkened room, though takes a torch because she still has an acute case of nyctophobia, fear the dark. She finds some children shackled in a dungeon, members of a royal family loyal to Annihilus that have been abused and starved, narration adding that the room stinks of rotted food and excrement. This gives way to a memory of Blink's youth in Apocalypse's pens, where she'd sleep close to her friend Ilyana Rasputin for warmth. Eventually, however, they'd be visited by the grotesque Sugar Man, the geneticist who ran the work camp the girls were held in.
Today, part 4 of our series of the agonizing pain in which I live every day.
And although Blink loved Ilyana deeply, she always prayed that he'd take her first. But he never did.
Wait, which one of them did she want the giant headman to take? Did she want Ileana taken despite their friendship, out of self-preservation? Or did Blink want him to take her instead of Ileana, even though that'd separate them? It's just kind of confusing.
Clarice screams and collapses from the recollection, as Ahmyor and some other fighters have arrived. He holds her close, asking what happened, in a panel that nicely conveys that he cares, though maybe given those shoulder spikes don't hold too tightly? She's uncertain what she experienced, and internally is equally unsure if she actually loves the rebel leader or is merely clinging to him, or if that even matters. 4 days later, they're treading along an area known as the River of Glass, Ahmyor wanting Blink to see the beauty of 3 suns rising. He adds that not only has she saved several lives, including his, but she's also restored his soul, getting Clarice all misty-eyed and telling him to shut up. "Must you always joke when I'm telling you that I love you?" "Yes, I must. Every time."
It helps me workshop material for that stand-up comedy class I'm taking at the Learning Annex. So far, I only have jokes about vague but horrific memories of my past life and making demon soldiers wet themselves. That only gets you so far.
Behind them, 2 off-panel voyeurs are admiring the couple. "Oh, you should see them through the scope. Ravishing." "Oh, I can imagine. I assume it does something exquisite to her hair." "You mean the hair that's covered by a cloak?" Anyway, it turns out to be Balurian soldiers who blast them into unconsciousness. Clarice wakes up hours later, seemingly in a dark area, with her arms tied behind her, Ahmyor restrained to a post, and finding she's in a brightly lit stadium, and her arms are no longer tied. Blastaar, sitting on his throne, derides their romance. She mouths off to him and gets blasted for it, and is suddenly retied again. Weird continuity there. This guard's stance is even weirder. His lower half seems stable, but his upper half is arched back like he's about to fall over.
Someone get this guy a coffee. He was going to sleep in on his day off, but apparently had to fill in for a friend that called in sick.
The next few panels seem to keep bouncing between Clarice's hands being free and being tied, as Blastaar insists he's a tougher opponent than his minions, or the monster that is her lover. When she fires back, "No, you are," he laughs at how clueless she is about their world. Firstly, his rule is far better than the insanity that allegedly came before, and secondly, as the issue ends and Blink is led away, the hairy monarch says that Ahmyor is actually a nihilist. The rebel leader denies it, but doesn't exactly seem certain himself.
Oh, that's why my driver's license has a weird green face on it. I thought I just slept weird that day.
You'd think there'd be more denial, since why believe your enemy? I feel like they kinda didn't spoil this with the cover. Sure, we had no reason to suspect this about Ahmyor, but since we knew nothing about him, kind of means the cover gives you the idea regardless. I guess it'll depend on how you feel about spoilers. It was appropriate that this issue was largely focused on the rebellion's assault on Blastaar's empire, but it kinda just drops it on you that Blink and Ahmyor are romantically involved. It feels more like the relationship is present out of expectation of certain tropes, not because it's actually warranted. Also, for someone whose major problem in the first issue was having trouble working with a team, and has been operating on instinct despite memory loss, Clarice has shown to be very effective as part of the rebellion. However, the story didn't see fit to show the formulation of plans or anything, so it doesn't feel like character growth.
Next week, we conclude the story. How does Blink cope with this revelation about someone she trusted? How will she get home? Will she actually take advantage of the situation the next time the artists accidentally forget that she's supposed to be tied up? These answers, or fewer, next time. I'm the Angry Spork, and man, have I got issues.